Before we go into the video, I want to ask you a question. Are you tired of analysts and pro players calling us morons and plebs? Do you think you have the knowledge to talk about the issues in the scene? Do you have some concerns or grievances that you want to discuss but don't have a platform to share them? Fret not, because I have a solution. Welcome to the Panchayat, a community center for Counter-Strike. Panchayat is a podcast where common fans like us can discuss the issues within the scene. To be a panel member in this podcast, come join my Discord channel. Invite will be in the description and my YouTube banner. Alright, with that said, welcome to the video where I discuss the history of Hobbit after he won the Major in 2017 and how he went from a hero to zero and then back to being a hero. This is a story of true grit, passion and dedication to be the best in the world. A miracle is an event that seems inexplicable by the laws of the nature. Such was Gambit's run in the PGL Krakow Major. Rated as nobodies coming into the event, with a 2.5 months of competitive hiatus. Their last showing was a DreamHack Open Summer where they faced losses against CLG and Fnatic, finishing 5th to 6th. An uninspiring finish to say the least. But nobody knew what the future held in its wings. Coming into the event with the legend starters from the last major, they had an unprecedented run, going 3-0 in the group stage with wins over Virtus.pro, G2 and Mousesports. In the quarterfinals, they faced off against Fnatic, who took them down the last time they met in the quarterfinals of the Eleague Major. As Gambit took down Fnatic, a behemoth in the form of Astralis stood in their way. The match on the paper looked one-sided as Astralis being touted as one of the tournament favorites. It looked impossible, but Gambit did the unthinkable, taking down Astralis in a 2-1 affair. On 23rd of July 2017, history was written as Gambit became the only CIS squad to win a major. But just like any other event in Counter-Strike, the euphoria didn't last long. Due to internal conflicts surrounding their coach Kane, both Zues and Kane bid goodbyes to the team. This set off a chain of events that Gambit never recovered from. To fill in this gap, Fitch, Hobbit's former teammate, was brought in. You see, Gambit was never one of the best teams in the world, even at the time they won the major. Ranked 3rd on the HLTV rankings, going down seemed the only way possible. The first Tier 1 tournament they attended after the major was DreamHack Malmo, where they reached semi-finals, which was a good result considering they kept failing to make into Tier 1 events through online qualifiers. There, during an interview with HLTV, they said that Adren was the new IGL. The next month, they attended Epicenter, where they finished dead last. During that event, Gambit said that Doja had assumed the IGL role. Then in the next month, they attended IEM Oakland, where they said that both Doja and Adren were IGLing. This concluded the year for them as they fell from being ranked 3rd to ranked 12th on the HLTV rankings. With January came the next major, Eleague Major in Atlanta. Coming in with the legend status, they were unable to defend it, as they finished with 2 wins and 3 losses in the legend stage, but they will still have the challenger status. Here in an interview, they said that Doja had taken back the IGL role. Interestingly, Gambit still believed that they were the best in the world, but believed that their pieces were not fitting as well as they did back in the Krakow Major. But history is a proof of the fact that when things go wrong, the newcomer is often pushed out as the feeling of nostalgia kicks in. You just want to give it another try. And so Fitch was benched and Seized was brought in, but not as an IGL. At the same time, Hobbit decided that now it's his turn to be passed upon the baton of IGL responsibility. However, roster changes did not bring any immediate results. They went out 12 to 14th in Star Ladder Season 4, losing to Na'Vi, Astralis and Hellraisers, and 9 to 12th in IEM Katowice, losing to SK and Liquid. It was interesting how Adren said that they brought in out of form Seized to bring out his best form from his time in Na'Vi. Their continued failure in online qualifiers meant absence in many Tier 1 events. Finally, they were invited for DreamHack Masters Marseille, where they surprised everybody, probably themselves too, as they secured a semi-final finish, losing to Navi. However, it seemed that they couldn't get over Zues, as Adren said that they were playing in the same way they used to play with Zues, just with seized calling. Unfortunately, they went back to their losing ways. First, they benched Seas and brought in Mir, nothing changed. Then Blade joined at some point, and that didn't help either. The Faceit Major was the breaking point for Hobbit, as they lost their challenger status. There, it was revealed that they didn't have a dedicated IGL, and technically anybody could make the final call in a round. Because the IGL debacle never really resolved, Hobbit now decided to bench himself and Gambit put him on the transfer list. Just after a few months on the bench, he got an offer from Hellraisers. Even though the move seemed riddled with problems like communication, it had something that Hobbit was craving for over a year. Angel, a dedicated IGL. And so, he joined. The first Tier 1 event was ESL Pro League Final Season 8, where they went out 9-12, probably as par for the course for a team like Hellraisers. There they suffered losses to Astralis and G2 on the way out. Their next big tournament was Katowice Major 2019. The team had a major issue of communication which dragged them down to the 12th to 14th place, with losses to FaZe, NIP and Cloud9 in the Legend stage. This result triggered multiple roster changes within the team, which involved benching of Hobbit on 15th of April. He had been on the roster only for over 4 months, but due to lack of results meant less eyeballs on the team, and so Hobbit would stay on the bench for some time. While he was on the bench, he did an interview with HLTV where he revealed that he had 1 or 2 serious offers, which unfortunately fell through, mostly due to his buyout. He also became a father in June. He stayed on Hellraiser's bench for 6 months, after which he was loaned by Winstrike. His time with Winstrike was fairly uneventful, attaining the 24th rank on HLTV on the back of a second place finish in the Road to Rio RMR was the only highlight during this time. They also secured a 7th place finish in the next RMR. His contract ended with Hellraisers the next year on July 6, 2020, and so he left. Thus, his loan with Winstrike also ended. His future seemed uncertain for the time being, but luckily, youngsters of Gambit wanted to grow up and thus wanted an experienced player. The stars aligned perfectly for him as he was brought in on July 29, 2020, initially forming a 6-man roster, but eventually Supra was benched. Before we go into the specifics and doubts surrounding the moves, I want to talk about the foundations of the team, Gambit Youngsters. This team was put together on 5th April 2019 by their current coaches who are Groove and Finn. Shiro and Nafini used to play on a team called Viale Pitoni, and the rest of them were completely unknown. With little to no HLTV or Liquipedia recorded matches, their journey started. Initially, they weren't a very good team, which is to be expected. But just in a span of 3 or 4 months, they started playing well in online qualifiers for Tier 2 and Tier 3 events, taking down teams like Winstrike and Pro 100. They also won a few small events like MSI Gaming Arena and CIS Esports Pro Championship, taking down teams like Avangard, Vega Squadron and X Epsilon. Although the team was doing good for an academy team, they were nowhere on the radar in Tier 1 competition. They would often be beaten by teams in the top 20 during close qualifiers and not make it to top events. But something happened that made every Counter-Strike fan hear the name Gambit Youngsters. The player break for Tier 1 competition is taken between July 15th to August 15th. But Tier 2 never stops. Between 21st July and 22nd of August, they went on an unprecedented streak of 25 match wins, 44 map wins, while facing a loss on only 2 maps. On the way, they also won many small tournaments. This is practically impossible since you can never prepare for opponents in the Tier 2 scene. because you don't know who are going to play next, which makes the run even harder. Now, despite of this unbelievable streak of wins, they made a roster change, which came as a surprise to everyone. They signed Hobbit to 29 July as an IGL, initially saying that they will be transitioning into a 6-man roster. However, as Nafri revealed on the HLTV podcast, it was only to decide who will be benched. Supra was transfer listed on September 30th. He played his last match for the Youngsters on 5th of August. This change seemed ridiculous at the time because during that unprecedented win streak, Supra held a fantastic 1.21 rating. To the public eye, they were replacing a young star with a washed-up player who hadn't achieved anything since the major. Moreover, the team had a tag of youngsters. However, later Nordavind's coach Josh Mix revealed on a podcast that Supra was benched mainly because he was from Estonia, and Gambit's coaches were concerned if he would be able to attend team boot camps given the travel restrictions. Anyway, after adding Hobbit, their results suffered for some time, but they were right back into the winning ways as they won yet another small tournament called 9-5 over Godsend, who are now FPX. At this point, the team maintained top 30 ranking on HLTV for 15 weeks, and as promised by Gambit, they were promoted to the main CSGO squad. But they were still very far from becoming a part of the elite teams. With the removal of this tag, it was time to compete with the big boys. Their next goal was to qualify for Flashpoint 2, but they fell short at the finish line as they lost 16-14 on the last map against Forza in the close qualifier. Nafri recalls it as the most painful loss they have ever faced on the HLTV podcast. But they were quick to amend their ways as they qualified for DreamHack Open November and DreamHack Masters Winter, while they also won Lootbit Season 8 over Virtus Pro and 2 9-5 trophies. Their first Tier 2 event win came in the form of DreamHack Open November as they won against Spirit in the finals convincingly. Going into their first Tier 1 appearance in the DreamHack Masters Winter, they had a very good showing as they took down Cloud9 and Complexity and made it to the quarterfinals, only going down to Astralis. Their next showing was in DreamHack Open December, where they made it to the semifinals, losing to Virtus Pro. After this, they went back to dominate smaller tournaments, winning another 9-5 and Vulcan Fight Series. Then they had two Tier 2 competitions lined up. First up was DreamHack Open January, where they lost to FPX in the semifinals. Next up, they had Snow Sweet Snow, where they reached the finals and their part of the trophy was blocked again by FPX, developing a nice little rivalry, which then probably no one cared about. That being said, FPX have not yet met Gambit again after beating them twice, so looking forward to that matchup again. Now, for the most important and most incredible result this Gambit roster has yet achieved. Because they were consistently making playoffs in Tier 2 events, they were invited to the play-in stage. Coming in ranked 19th on HLTV, expectations for the team would have been very low. They blitzed through the play-in stage, easily taking down Team 1 and a comfortable 3-map win against Mousesports. Coming into the group stage, they were pitted against Evil Geniuses, and EG were easily able to deal with them in a 2-0 fashion. However, their first opponent in the lower bracket was Mousesports, who weren't in the best of form as they had recently added Dexter at the time. Gambit had already beaten them in the play-ins, which they were able to repeat easier than the last time, dispatching them with a quick 2-0. Heroic was their next opponent. It shouldn't have been them, but they were upset by Team Spirit in the upper bracket. And guess what? They were upset again by Gambit. Even after taking down Gambit on Overpass, arguably the best map for Gambit at the time, they narrowly lost their own map pick of Inferno 16-14. And they couldn't even get started on Mirage as they lost 16-3. Their next matchup was against G2. G2 weren't doing pretty well at that moment. They still had the inconsistent Kenius in the roster. Gambit were able to take them down pretty comfortably on Vertigo and Dust 2 with 16-11s on both maps. With this victory, they secured a place in the quarters and were matched up against the CIS powerhouse Na'Vi. Well, that is what they at least should be. With criticism pouring in from all the directions for their lack of a leader and consistently running out of time on the T side, it was imperative that they went for every trophy they could. But the result turned out as harsh as the criticism, and they succumbed to the better playing CIS squad. It was a catastrophic loss for Na'Vi, as they could only get a measly 6 rounds on their own map pick of Train after losing on Overpass. Next up was the matchup of underdogs. Spirit and Gambit both had a terrific run, but it was time to prove who's better. The first map of Overpass was convincingly taken by Gambit 16-11, as Exile and Hobbit both went ham, combining for 43 kills. The second map of Inferno came very close, as Spirit were mounting a comeback on the CT side against a humongous lead of 15-4. They managed to go all the way till 13, but stumbled on the final few hurdles as they conceded the golden number 16 and lost 16-13. To reach this final, Gambit had to take down 2 of their CIS brethren-in-arms, Na'Vi and Spirit. But to take the trophy, they had to do one better, as they faced off against Virtus Pro. VP came in as favourites in the matchup, as Yakindar was playing out of his mind throughout the tournament. It started on Vertigo, Gambit's map pick, but it didn't matter because both the teams played the map very well. The map was very back and forth, but Gambit took control on the CT side and took a 14-11 lead. But VP managed to win 5 rounds in a row to close out the map 16-14. This is probably where they used all of their energy, as they showed no signs of life in the following 2 maps. They lost 16-6 on Dust 2 and 16-4 on Train. Both of these maps used to be one of the strongest for VP, but they were completely annihilated. The bout ended on Overpass as they showed some resistance, but not enough to take away the map, as they lost 16-12, giving the trophy to the lowest seeded team coming in the tournament. As much as VP were criticized for dropping the ball, Gambit were praised for successfully shutting down such a strong team. Hobbit, with all his experience, led the team with 90 kills throughout 4 maps and posted an incredible rating of 1.40 in the match. But this wasn't the end. This marked the start of a dominant force that is incredibly difficult to break. Hobbit and Gambit have gone on to win multiple trophies after Katowice this year, and well and truly on their way to mark the start of an era. A good performance at Cologne will be a precursor of their era. Even if they don't perform to that level, they have written history, and history that no one can take away from them. Thank you for watching the video, like and comment, subscribe for more content like this, join my Discord to be the part of the Panchayat podcast. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.